You got a Google alert?
Yes.
She called him. What did you say to him?
I asked if it was true. And he admitted it right away. And I think my response was...
Demi Moore has finally broken her silence, and what she's revealed about her years with Ashton Kutcher is shaking up everything we thought we knew. Their relationship looked like the perfect Hollywood fairy tale. She was a living legend. He was the charming up-and-comer. When they walked a red carpet, the world saw two people defying every norm, especially their 15-year age difference, and doing it with style. But beneath that seemingly carefree bond lived quiet heartbreak, hidden betrayals, and a fight for sobriety that nearly took Demi down a path she feared she'd never recover from. The story you're about to hear is a roller coaster of hope, loss, and the lengths people will go to save a love that may already be broken. By the end, you may never see these two in the same light again. Demi Moore was 40, fresh off major personal changes, and building a life she could finally call her own. Ashton Kutcher, at 25, was known for pranks and comedic roles, but there was a magnetic force about him that drew people in. Somehow, despite the glare of paparazzi and public opinion, they connected. Within weeks of first meeting, they had an 8-hour phone call, an almost mythical number in terms of how quickly two people can bond. Demi described that phone call as an emotional deep dive where they swapped life philosophies and confessed secret hopes. Friends said there was an electricity around them, and it felt genuine, not some Hollywood fling. Ashton charmed her daughters instantly, and even Bruce Willis, her ex-husband, was surprisingly supportive. The press, of course, latched on to the older woman, younger man angle. It became comedic fodder for late-night shows. Even fans who admired Demi joked about how bold it was to date someone who was literally in grade school when she was already an adult. But none of that seemed to faze them. They came up with witty comebacks when teased about their age gap and even appeared on Saturday Night Live to mock the public's obsession with this cougar narrative. For a moment, it all felt like the perfect romance that rose above every snide remark and cynical headline. Behind the smiles and that contagious sense of fun, there was an unspoken secret. Demi had become pregnant. By itself, that was a major event, one that thrilled them both. She'd already raised 3 daughters, but the idea of building a new family with someone she felt so connected to felt like a second chance. Ashton, for his part, seemed eager to become a father figure. He was involved in baby planning and even started reading parenting books, determined to handle diapers and midnight cries with the same confidence he brought to movie sets. Yet in the 6th month, they discovered during a routine checkup that the baby no longer had a heartbeat. The shock was instant and haunting. Demi had experienced heartbreak before in her life, but she claimed this moment shattered her in a way she wasn't prepared for. She blamed herself, recalling times she'd smoked or had a glass of wine early on in the pregnancy. She carried a burden of guilt she never quite let go of. They turned to grief counseling, something neither had done before. Each session was a weekly attempt at healing, but something felt off. Ashton tried to console her, but in Demi's words, he never fully grasped the depth of her guilt and despair. In an effort to paper over these cracks, they dived into every fix they could find: fertility treatments, more intense couples therapy, spiritual retreats. At first, these efforts felt hopeful, like they were forging their own path to redemption. However, the heartbreak had chipped away at Demi's sense of security. She slipped into old habits. She began drinking again and occasionally used painkillers, all while Ashton was juggling a high-profile career and the comedic persona the world loved him for. Some nights, he'd return home to find her in tears, physically drained and emotionally numb. She admitted she hated how she looked, dropping to 98 pounds, a number that now makes her cringe when she looks back. To further complicate an already delicate situation, she agreed to threesomes because she thought it would spice up their intimacy and maybe secure Ashton's love. She later confessed she regretted those moments deeply, describing them as acts of desperation to hold on to something slipping away. Then came the bombshell: Ashton's infidelity. It wasn't just that he cheated. It was how Demi found out. She was prepping for a red carpet event when she got a Google alert on her phone. A story broke that he'd been with a 22-year-old named Sarah Leal on what was supposed to be his wedding anniversary weekend with Demi. The agony in that moment wasn't just the betrayal, it was discovering it in such a public, humiliating way. Still, she had to put on a dress, do her makeup, and step into the spotlight as if her entire world hadn't just crumbled. Ashton confessed, but there was a disturbing twist. He used the fact they'd had threesomes to claim that boundaries in their relationship were blurred. For Demi, hearing that excuse felt like salt in the wound. She realized those nights she thought might save their intimacy had given him a twisted justification to cross lines she thought were still sacred. The aftermath was brutal. Media outlets chased them relentlessly, hoping to catch a shot of Demi's tears or Ashton's guilt. Where once they had gracefully shrugged off tabloids mocking their age gap, now that same media machine zeroed in on Ashton's unfaithfulness. Demi tried to keep going, even standing next to him at a charity event for their anti-human trafficking foundation. Every camera flash felt like an accusation. Why are you still with this man? Behind the scenes, her trust was beyond repair. Ashton apologized, but the emotional damage had been done. In November 2011, Demi announced their separation, insisting she needed to stand by her values and sense of self-worth. Fans were shocked but not entirely surprised, given the wave of rumors that had flooded the internet. The divorce itself took nearly 2 years to finalize, with Ashton officially filing paperwork in December 2012. When the process finally ended in November 2013, it was like both wanted to sprint away from an experience that left lasting scars. What the public didn't see was how deeply Demi spiraled. She had been sober for around 20 years, an achievement she'd fought hard for, dating back to her St. Elmo's Fire days when her director demanded she get clean before stepping in front of a camera. Suddenly, that commitment to sobriety collapsed. She started mixing prescription meds with alcohol, chasing numbness instead of peace. The scariest incident happened in January 2012, a seizure at her own house party in Benedict Canyon. She'd been using synthetic cannabis and inhaling nitrous oxide. A panicked friend dialed 911, describing Demi as semi-conscious and convulsing. If tabloids had been brutal before, this new development exploded across headlines. All the while, her daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah, felt like they were losing a mother they once admired. Rumor described it as watching her mom transform into someone unrecognizable, while Tallulah recalled feeling a constant knot of anxiety, never knowing if she'd come home to find Demi perfectly fine or dangerously incoherent. Scout, who'd always been close to her mom, felt a deep sense of betrayal, wondering if their bond had ever been as strong as she believed. Demi's internal struggles led her to cloister herself away, ignoring calls, dodging invitations, and alienating the same family she once fought so hard to preserve. It reached a point where her daughters cut contact, refusing even to attend her 50th birthday. Demi missed Rumor's appearance on Dancing with the Stars. She missed important family milestones, hollowed out by the darkness of addiction. The turning point was when she realized she was on the verge of losing not just her marriage or her public image, but her children's respect and possibly her own life. In 2012, she sought treatment at a luxury rehab facility in Utah, a center known for its holistic approach and hefty price tag. She spent tens of thousands of dollars a month, a sobering investment in trying to reclaim the person she used to be. Yet her daughters didn't instantly rush to her side. They'd been burned too many times, and they needed tangible proof she was serious about recovery this time. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Demi began to heal. She did daily therapy, journaling, and confronted the traumas buried deep from her childhood. Everything from her father leaving before she was born to the horrifying story she recounted in her memoir about her mother's betrayal. That emotional excavation was essential, but it left her raw, terrified that the steps to mend her life might reveal even more pain. Meanwhile, the world moved on. Ashton had begun dating Mila Kunis, with tabloids swiftly painting them as an adorable couple who might have started with a fling on that 70s show but were apparently destined for each other. Demi tried not to pay attention, but the coverage was everywhere. Every mention of Ashton's new romance felt like a jab, reminding her she was alone and in rehab, while her ex-husband seemed to be celebrating newfound happiness. For 3 years, her daughters kept their distance. Tallulah, who had her own battles with body dysmorphia and an eating disorder, once said that during that period it was just too painful to be around Demi. Rumor admitted she was furious and hurt, recalling the moment she had to call 911 to save her mom's life, an experience that haunted her with nightmares. Scout felt abandoned, convinced her mom no longer cared about the family they tried so hard to hold together. The silence between them was deafening. No calls, no texts, and definitely no visits on holidays. Yet, in 2015, a surprising shift happened. Tallulah finished her own stint in rehab and recognized the parallels between her struggles and her mother's. With a new perspective on addiction, she reached out. Demi, who'd maintained her sobriety for a while by then, flew across the country to see her daughter. This tentative reunion sparked a chain reaction. Soon, Rumor and Scout also tested the waters of reconciliation. It wasn't a simple or tear-free process, but over the next 18 months, family therapy sessions peeled back layers of resentment. They learned to communicate with honesty and vulnerability, no longer dancing around the painful truths. By 2017, the family attended a retreat in Arizona, participating in meditation and emotional healing exercises that forced them to finally listen to one another. One activity had them write letters detailing every hurt and disappointment they'd carried. Reading those out loud was both excruciating and cathartic. When they left that retreat, they felt lighter, though the healing journey was far from over. During that same period, Demi rekindled her friendship with Bruce Willis. Their divorce in 2000 had been remarkably civil, setting a foundation for a supportive blended family. She realized that even though her romantic relationship with Bruce had ended, he remained a rock, someone who knew her from better and worse times and didn't judge her for falling apart. He, too, had moved on, marrying Emma Hemming, with whom he had more children. Yet the ties that bound them all together remained strong. When the Willis family announced in 2022 that Bruce had aphasia, a condition affecting his ability to communicate, Demi was one of the first to publicly offer support. She visited often, making sure their daughters could share time with their dad. In a heartwarming twist, she joined forces with Emma, stepping in to help Bruce navigate a diagnosis that was life-altering. A video of them celebrating Bruce's 68th birthday in 2023 went viral, showing Demi, Emma, and all the kids singing around him, proof that a family doesn't always need to fit a traditional mold to be loving and united. For Demi, these demonstrations of unity, forgiveness, and genuine connection symbolized how far she'd come. She no longer felt the need to chase validation or fight for acceptance. After releasing her memoir Inside Out, she peeled away the final layers of secrecy, laying bare her struggles with addiction, her complicated marriages, and the trauma she endured from her youth. Surprisingly, the public embraced her raw honesty, praising her courage. Instead of condemnation, she received empathy and support from fans who felt they finally understood the real Demi Moore. Interviews around the memoir's release became almost a second wave of healing, this time a public one. Interestingly, she and Mila Kunis ended up forming a casual friendship, something that once seemed impossible to imagine. They started a small book club, meeting every couple of weeks to discuss whatever novels piqued their interest. It became a testament to how time and understanding can mend rifts. For Demi, it was also a reminder that life moves on, and what once felt like the worst betrayal can eventually be reframed as part of a broader journey of self-discovery. She recognized that Ashton and Mila's relationship wasn't something to despise. In many ways, it was a second chance for him to become the man she had wanted him to be. And, in finding acceptance, she freed herself from lingering resentment. When asked about her current relationships, she flashes a gracious smile and says she has no regrets about her past. She acknowledges that the heartbreak with Ashton was real and raw, but it led her to confront parts of herself she'd kept buried. There's a sense of peace in her eyes now that contrasts sharply with the frantic gaze captured by paparazzi years ago. Even the media's portrayal of her has shifted, from scandalized headlines about an unraveling star to celebrating a fierce survivor who overcame obstacles that might have destroyed someone with less fortitude. Though Demi rarely speaks about Ashton these days, she's not bitter. When pressed in interviews, she maintains she wishes him the best. She's even spoken warmly about how he was there for her daughters at a time they needed a paternal figure, acknowledging that no matter how messy it got, the love he showed them was real. As for Ashton, he's publicly stated that he, too, learned a lot from his marriage to Demi, lessons about commitment, fatherhood, and the consequences of betrayal. Observers see it as one of Hollywood's more mature ways of reconciling a very public, very painful breakup. It doesn't erase the damage, but it signifies a willingness to reflect, grow, and move forward without malice. In interviews marking her 62nd birthday, Demi spoke about feeling a sense of wonder that she's still here, not just surviving but thriving. She recalled nights in her darkest times, lying awake and convinced she'd never pull out of that emotional tailspin. Yet the same woman who once felt so broken now glows with a confidence that radiates from within. She credits her renewed bond with her daughters, her honesty about addiction, and her acceptance that vulnerability doesn't make her weak, it makes her human. In some ways, sharing her story publicly was the final step in acknowledging her own humanity. No more hiding behind a glamorous star persona or Hollywood illusions. The world now sees her scars and, in turn, sees her strength. What started as an unlikely romance with a younger comedian, one that shot headlines around the globe, became a catalyst for Demi's most challenging life chapters. The miscarriage, the attempt to salvage a relationship through unconventional means, and the betrayal that ultimately pulled them apart all chipped away at her sense of self. But they also forced her to rebuild in a way she never had before. She confronted deep-seated trauma from childhood, found the courage to seek help instead of numbing the pain, and discovered that sometimes the greatest love story you can have is the one with yourself. Through it all, her story stands as a testament to resilience in an industry that often chews people up and leaves them in ruins. Demi Moore took time away from the bright lights of Hollywood to heal, then returned stronger, shedding any guilt or shame that once haunted her. She can laugh about the Cougar label, celebrate the bond she has with her ex-husband Bruce Willis, and embrace her role as a mother and grandmother. And if there's any lingering sadness about how things ended with Ashton, she doesn't show it. Instead, she seems grateful for the lessons, both painful and empowering. Now, at 62, she lives by her own rules. No rush to find another partner, no pressure to conform to anyone else's timetable. It's a radical departure from the Demi who, at 17, married a rock musician just to escape her life. It's also a far cry from the Demi who, at 40, threw herself into a whirlwind romance with a much younger man, hoping that love might fix old wounds. Today, she knows the truth. Only she can do that work. And so she does day by day, choice by choice. This evolution is what makes her story about Ashton Kutcher so eye-opening. It's not just tabloid gossip about a scandalous age-gap marriage. It's a window into a woman's journey from wounded child star to an icon who redefined what it means to be strong by daring to be vulnerable. When she finally revealed those heartbreaking details, from miscarriages to relapses, she didn't do it to dwell on the past or point fingers. She did it to show others that rising above despair is possible, even when the camera lights are off, the applause fades, and you're left alone with your demons. At 62, Demi Moore isn't the heartbroken woman the tabloids once declared finished. She has made peace with her past, let go of shame, and emerged more resilient than anyone would have guessed. By choosing her own healing path, she's shown a generation of admirers and skeptics that it's never too late to reclaim your narrative. Her story with Ashton Kutcher may have ended in betrayal, but her personal journey continues, fueled by love for her family, a commitment to sobriety, and the kind of hard-earned wisdom only survival can teach. And so, she closes this chapter not in bitterness, but in a gentle acceptance that sometimes the darkest turns in life can lead you back to a place of light and self-discovery. For more of the latest news, check out this video.